Well, let me ask you a question, because I hear a lot of people straddling the rope on, is the world becoming knowledgeable to really the underbelly of this beast? But what on this panel, what would you guys define as success? As what a result of 2020 and the general public, what would you define as success? Because I think a lot of things are rooted in really just a dramatic ambition that is unrealistic. So as maybe Bitcoin, the asset or your business or whatever, what do you think would be success when we end up curving back to the upside and whatever that means to you? I'm curious about that, because then I think the conversation is much more clear than whether or not the guy standing in front of me at Chipotle knows what the fuck is going on. It doesn't mean much to me.
I would define success for Bitcoin post 2020 as one in which its reputation changes from something it's emerged out of, which is this niche thing that's for bad people that want to stay in the shadows, which is very much where its reputation was 8 years ago, to being seen and perceived as the sane alternative, a true money based on math and transparency and upstanding principles. And that in this world of chaos, this is something we can actually look to as something that's provably true. I think if it starts getting that reputation, that stellar reputation among normal people, that would be a massive success.
I agree 100%. And I think that's already happening personally. It seems to be the narrative for Bitcoin in 2020 is really legitimacy. And you can argue it started maybe with the CME product and such in 2017. But I mean, watching people like Paul Tudor Jones publicly not only hedge himself but then brag about his hedge on fucking Twitter. I mean, that is pretty cool.
So that was actually a fake account.
Yeah, I think that was fake, but that did go viral.
I mean, regardless, man.
He then did start shilling
Link. I just tried to make, but regardless, I think
what we need from 2020 is credibility from sock puppet accounts. I feel like if we can get the sock puppet accounts behind Bitcoin, we're really destined for great things.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, though, I think that's been the narrative so far. I've never seen such utter confidence. I mean, I've been like a Barstool fan, for example, for my whole life. And outside of the pump and dump videos and whatever, I mean, just watching the general public's opinion on Bitcoin just change. It feels like it's overnight. It feels like the way people approach me personally in my social life or what I do for a career or Bitcoin generally, it feels like I blinked. And I think we all know that's the nature of markets generally. They don't really wait for anyone. You're either on board or you're not. They're not very nice. And so I think I agree with you, Erik. I think that's a very realistic and sound goal for success for Bitcoin. And I think it's happening.
So to me, success would be measured by the number of people that are able to exit the legacy system and are able to look at Bitcoin as more than just a speculative asset. And I think that there's nothing that's given me more comfort than having the vast majority of my wealth in an asset that if the system fails, it's not like my own personal ruin goes with it necessarily. And so, I think the more people that we can have around the world that exclusively use Bitcoin as their financial vehicle, as their vehicle for commerce or collaboration, that's really the dream that we need to be building towards. And so are we building the services and products and infrastructures and bridges required so that people can actually use Bitcoin in their life as a replacement of the legacy system?
Yeah,
I would just go ahead, Sam.
I was going to say, I totally agree. And I think products are a huge part of this. And I think there are a lot of products that would be great. And I think a lot of people have started building pieces of it, but not put all of it together. And I think, sort of, as you said, there's sort of this one thing of is there a cool product that's useful? And yeah, there's a lot of those. There's another thing of is there the product that replaces everything? And the answer is just no. It's clearly no. There's bits and pieces of it. And you see credit card crypto integration companies, which are clearly an important piece somewhere in this, popping up, and Swipes Office has been doing fantastically. But that's sort of a standalone thing. And you see obviously personal wallets are everywhere, but like, you know, wallet alone doesn't do what you need. You see like payment rails starting to have some work on them, integrating wise, but it's not. And you just see like all these pieces of like, what would it take to go crypto native? And it sort of feels like, yeah, we're the things people are doing, and some of them are wacky, but some of them seem like, yeah, it's on the right track. It feels to me like no one's put them together. And I mean, that's, you know, maybe a little bit of like a you know, background for like some of the stuff that I'd be pretty excited if we manage to roll out over the next, you know, year or so, which would be like, yeah, trying to put the pieces that exist together. A lot of them are pretty exciting in a way to sort of build like the complete product that I think people want.
So a new way of life.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just a new way of life where you can live a life and be unplugged from the system. You can have exited the system and get all the products and services that you need to be able to continue going about your day.
Exactly. And like right now, there's sort of like, you know, people claim they can do that. And you're like, okay, you want to take a taxi to get somewhere. What'd you do? They're like, oh, I can't take taxis. I don't know how to do that. Or alternately, they're like, oh yeah, no, I just like went to the ATM and took out some cash for it. So like, right, we clearly haven't quite gotten there yet.
To drop a little,
you know,
to drop a little dose of reality here, I don't see any sign that normal people are fleeing to Bitcoin from normal payment or money yet. And I think they inevitably absolutely will. But payment systems normally are working fine for normal people. They're working just as they always have. And stock markets are at all-time highs, and no one's worried about banks. So that is not the environment in which people are rushing into any kind of alternative or will care about learning about it. But I think we all need to realize that when that tide actually turns, when the stock market starts going all over the place and people lose faith in that, when people start losing faith in banks and in fiat currencies and in the payment systems that they're used to, when any small portion of those people try to move into Bitcoin, the volatility in the Bitcoin market is going to become immense. And it's not just going to be the smooth transition where they're like, okay, I turned my $1,000 into some Bitcoin and now I'm integrated into this new alternative economy. They're going to need a lot of hand-holding and guidance and kind care, because they're going to be putting $1,000 into Bitcoin and it'll drop 30% the next day in these volatile markets. And there needs to be someone sitting there trying to help them through that and teach them why it's okay, and to like, don't worry about that too much. That's when Bitcoiners really need to step up and be there to help people.
So, you know, in terms of you know, leading people to realizing why they shouldn't trust the financial system, you know, for myself personally, the thing that brought me to Bitcoin was the 2008 crisis. And the 2008 crisis is what, for the first time, kind of pierced the veil for me and showed, wow, this is a scam. And before that, I was just a, you know, perfect government chill, you know, corporatist pleaser, statist. But that's what brought me to Bitcoin. And then, you know, in terms of people being able to exit the system, I don't think that that's everyday people that are even desiring to exit the system. I want this bubble to be the bubble where Bitcoiners, people who are very advanced users, can exit the system. Like, you know, people on this call, what would it take for you to go the extra mile so that you don't need a bank account? And if we were able to just take our community and get 10,000 people to be able to be completely bankless and high net worth, that is the path that must be tread so that people can follow behind. And so I don't think that everyday people who have $1,000 are going to go all in on Bitcoin, or that's going to be a financial system replacement to them this bubble. But it could be for people on this call. It could be for those that know a lot. And those people will drive forward the products and services required for people to just come behind us. And, you know, there's only a certain percentage, a small percentage, a minority of people that have to go all in on this system for the old system to collapse. Like, what percentage of, you know, communication needed to happen on the internet before people were forced to be on the internet? if you can't make the choice in today's society to be like, I'm not going to be part of the internet. I'm not going to get an email address. I'm not going to get a phone number. I mean, it would be impossible. And so it's like, if we can have 3% or 5% of people that are exclusively able to be collaborated with, to do trade and commerce with via Bitcoin or via whatever crypto system, then you start to get to a great enough percentage that you kind of force people to adopt the system, or they exclude such a significant amount of kind of economic benefit, economic activity.
If I agree with that.
So hey, wait, let's go to Jack, because I think that strike kind of ties into that. But after Jack, you respond, I do want to transition to our next topic. But great conversation so far.
Well, I agree with Erik personally. I don't think that the evidence is really there that anyone has the necessity to flee anything. Quite honestly, I think the greatest attractor to this asset class is the meme that you buy it, you hold it, and you get rich. And that meme is really not far from the truth. And I think that's attracted most of the market participants, is that putting your money into this asset that's scarce by definition and holds really the most sound properties that a money has ever had. If you hold it and you use that money as a savings technology, it's really benefited and changed lives everywhere. And it's going to usher in the greatest wealth transfer in human history. And I agree that eventually the tide will turn and it'll be the snap of a finger. But I mean, you're really just speculating on when that's going to happen. And I think the phrase, a market can remain irrational far longer than you can remain solvent, I think that applies here. Is, you're just really guessing at when that tide's going to turn. I think that for a hardcore Bitcoiner, the tools are there. If you really, really want to not have a bank account, I'd argue that you can. If you really, really want to. You're asking someone to do a lot, though. You're asking someone to take on volatility risk, custody an asset where their wealth can disappear overnight if they make a mistake. I mean, you're asking someone to take on a lot of responsibility and a lot of potential damage. But really, I mean, it depends on the upside. It depends on your personal situation. But what's the size of that market? I don't think it's big enough for a sustainable business. And so I don't want to be in a position where I'm speculating on when that tide turns. I think that there's plenty of work to do for this asset class before we have to go to central banks and be like, yo, fuck you guys, we're opting out. And for some about Bitcoin is you don't need anyone's permission. For some, if that's your flavor of tea, by all means, you do it. But do I think that, the general public is ready for that? At least where I'm from, no. And I'm very transparent and open about the fact that my viewpoint on the world is, one, very privileged, and two, doesn't share or represent, the global landscape whatsoever. But from where I sit, I don't know. I think there's plenty of work to do before we start telling everyone to jump ship. Personally, I don't see it. I agree with Erik.
Real quick, I want to hear from Pierre. I saw you nodding, and then maybe DB, you can jump in one last time, and then we got to switch topics.
Yeah, I guess I'm never trying to get fewer bank accounts. I'm always trying to get more bank accounts. Like I still see bank accounts as an asset to have. And at a macro level, I think that it's important because if we want to be doing a carry trade, right, of borrowing US dollars for cheap and then selling those dollars for Bitcoin and then taking those Bitcoin and lending them out at a higher interest rate, obviously there's some exchange rate risk there, but the interest rates make sense. And I think that if we want to, at a macro level, be taking down the system, then we got to make sure that the fractional reserve banking system is creating as much fiat as possible and lending it, whether it's against, hard assets like land or Bitcoin or, even your stock portfolio, right? Like people take out margin loans all the time. Take out a margin loan, buy a couple of Bitcoin, and see where it goes, because fundamentally that's what causes fiat systems to collapse, is by speculators and arbitrageurs coming in and doing these carry trades until finally the central bank has to raise interest rates because too much fiat is being created. And I don't think that they will ever raise interest rates. I think that they would rather, commit monetary suicide than do that. And so I think that's where that's going. And so from there, I'd argue that no, we should actually, it's bad I think it's bad when the banking system takes away someone's bank account, right? I don't think the banking system should be doing that. And so like the Bitcoin fixing that doesn't, to me, create a positive argument for closing your bank account. Obviously, bank accounts are bad for privacy, but I still think that they give you tremendous access to this legacy financial system. And so don't go out and close your bank accounts. Perhaps, if it makes sense for you, find ways to borrow from your bank.
That was a very Pierre answer. Thanks for giving a different take on that.